let's go hypothetical then. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has said that this is, in fact, a war crime, that it is despicable, that it is a grave violation of international law. If that event happened, as they are saying it did happen, would it be despicable? Would it be a violation of international law?
That's self-evident, of course.
Self-evident?
Of course, that's self-evident. It is despicable? It's a crime.
Because I'm sure you have seen the videos that we have seen of the child
but no one,
gagging on the ground, of the people
no one has verified
on the floor.
the credibility of the videos and the pictures.
Exactly.
No one verified. The only verified things are the samples that the delegation go and took. Samples of blood and other things from the soil and so on.
Which is what they say they have.
But you cannot build a report on videos if it's not verified.
But they are basing it on the blood sample.
Especially as we live in a world of forgery for the last 2.5 years regarding Syria. You have a lot of forgery on the internet.
Now there's a last key element to this UN report. And while the UN inspectors did not lay blame, that is, they did not place culpability for the attack, there are many experts interpreting this report, some that I've spoken to in the last 12 hours, that frankly say this attack looks firmly like an attack coming from your government, from the Syrian government. They point to a few things. They say it was a large amount of gas, sarin gas, maybe as much as a ton. The rebels could not have had that. They say the type of rocket, an M14 artillery, a 330 millimeter, never used by the rebels before, that they needed large vehicles to send these rockets up. The rebels don't have that. And maybe most importantly, they point to the trajectory of the rockets. They say that they were able to trace the rockets back from the impact point to where they came from. And in 2 different occasions, this is according to the UN, they say that the start point was Quezon Mountain, the headquarters of the Republican Guard. What do you say to that?
Everything you mentioned is part of the report.
Excuse me, sir?
Everything you mentioned, all these points, are part of the report?
These points are all part of the report. These are all facts.
No, the report didn't mention anything regarding the Republican Guards or things like this.
They said they gave the azimuth tracking of the trajectory, and people have extrapolated from the azimuth track that that is where it was coming from, northwestern Damascus.
Yes. First of all, the sarin gas called the kitchen gas. Do you know why? Because anyone can make sarin in his house.
They said it's very high quality, higher quality than even used in Iraq by Saddam Hussein, your neighbor at the time.
First of all, any rebel can make sarin. Second, we know that all those rebels are supported by governments. So any government that would have such chemical material can hand it over to those.
The experts say that they've tracked nothing like this. It's a ton of sarin gas. It is launchers, it is rockets, it's a whole fleet, which happen to be, from time to time, those kinds of armaments, those kind of munitions happen to be in your bases.
No. This is realistically cannot be possible. You cannot use the sarin beside your troops. This is first. Second, you don't use WMD while you're advancing. You're not being defeated, you're not retreating. The whole situation was in favor of the army. This is second. Third, we didn't use it when we had bigger problems last year. Third, when they talk about any troop or any unit in the Syrian army that's used these kind of weapons, this is false for one reason, because chemical weapons can only be used by specialized units. It cannot be used by any other units like infantry or similar traditional unit. So all what you've mentioned is not realistic and not true. Definitely, so far as government, we have evidence that the terrorist groups have used sarin gas, and those evidence handed over to the Russians. This is first. Second, the Russian satellites, since the beginning of these allegations at the 21st of August, they said that they have information through their satellites that the rocket launched from another area. So why to ignore this point of view? So the whole story doesn't even hold together. It's not realistic. So no, we didn't. In one word, we didn't use any chemical weapons in the Ghouta, because if you want to use it, you would harm your troops, you would have harmed the tens of thousands of civilians living in Syria, in Damascus.
Just to conclude this portion, Mr. President, will you allow more investigation? Will you allow UN investigators to come in, maybe to further investigate this attack? As you say, other attacks, there's something like 14 different attacks where accusations are being made on both sides, and even a UN team to decide on the culpability, the blame for this attack. You will allow those UN teams to come in?
We invited them to come to Syria first in March, and we've been asking them to come back to Syria to continue their investigations because we have more places to be investigated. The United States is the one who made pressure for them to leave recently before they finish their missions. When we invited the delegation, we wanted this delegation to have full authority to investigate everything, not only the use of the sarin or the gas or the chemical weapons, but to investigate everything about who did it and how. But the United States make pressure in order to keep it only by was it used or not. Why? Because I think the United States administration thought that if they are going to investigate who and how, they're going to reach the conclusions that the rebels or the terrorists have used it, and not vice versa.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dennis?
Do you believe that Syria's position as a secular state could be at risk in this conflict?
Okay. Of course, when we have this kind of extremism and terrorism and violence, that will render the whole society into more closed society, more ideologically fanatic. And that's what they are doing. That's what the extremists are doing.
But what does it mean to have a secular state? I mean, there are questions about whether or not, your position is authoritarian, whether you believe in democratic values. What does a secular state mean to Syria?
Secular state means to deal with its citizen, regardless of their religion, sects, and ethnicity. Because Syria is a melting pot. We have tens of different cultures in Syria. If we don't have secular states that reflect this secular society, Syria will disintegrate. So that's what it means, secular society.
Well, one of the notions about this very serious conflict is that it's a civil war. Would you agree with that characterization, that you're involved in a civil war?
Civil war should start from the society, should start from within. Civil war needs...
So you're blaming outside interests?
It needs clear lines, geographical lines and social lines and sectarian lines that we don't have in Syria. We don't have these lines. Sectarian war, civil war, doesn't mean to have 80 or 83 nationality coming to fight within your country supported by foreign countries. What we have is not civil war, what we have is a war, but it's a new kind of war.
So you're blaming outside interests then for the acceleration of the war. Now, there's just some statistics that have come out from IHS Janes. They're a defense analyst group. They estimate the opposition as 100,000, 30,000 of which are hardline Islamicists sympathetic to the 10,000 al-Qaeda-inspired jihadists. Now, any of these Syrian, are they all outsiders? Where are they getting their money?
First of all, no one has this precise number. This is exaggeration, because most of the jihadists, when they come to Syria, they don't come through countries and they don't come through organizations. They just come by plane to neighboring countries and they cross the border like any other one, and they just want to come to Syria for the jihad with the other jihadists. So nobody has these numbers. We know that we have tens of thousands of jihadists, but we are on the ground, we live in this country. What I can tell you that 80, and some say is 90, it's difficult to be precise. We don't have clear data and precise data. 80 to 90% of the rebels on the ground, of the terrorists, are al-Qaeda and their offshoots.
These are the rebels?
Yeah,
but you are not maintaining that all of your opponents are jihadis, are you?
No, not all of them. Of course, you have so many other different, but they are small. They are becoming minority. At the very beginning, the jihadists were the minority. At the end of 2012, and during this year, they became the majority with the flow of tens of thousands from different countries.
Where are they getting their money from? Can you tell us right now?
Mainly from donations.
But where? For donations from where?
Everywhere.
Can you name nations that are donating?
In the Islamic world. No, they come from individuals, not from countries, mainly. Those al-Qaeda. We don't know if some countries support them directly. We don't know. We don't have any information. I have to be very precise. But mainly from donations from people who carry the same ideology in their minds.
You mentioned before that some figures that are given are exaggeration. Can you tell us now how many Syrians have actually died in this conflict?
We have tens of thousands of Syrians that have died, mainly because of the terrorist attacks, assassinations, and suicide bombers, the majority.
And how many are your government soldiers?
More than 15,000.
And how many are insurgents?
How many? No,
how many insurgents are jihadis?
We don't have numbers because we cannot count them. So,
well, but there are innocent people being killed in this, and the reports are that your government has bombed villages in which innocent people are killed. What about that, Mr. President?
What about
the innocent people who are killed by the Syrian forces?
The majority of the innocent people have been killed by the terrorists, not by the government. You cannot, not a government, a wise government in the world that would kill its own people. How can you withstand if you kill your own people for 2.5 years while the West is against you, the regional countries, many of them are against you, and your people are against you while you're killing them? Is it possible? Is it realistic?
So you're saying you're not killing your own people, but your forces have launched attacks on villages where your own people have been killed.
No, actually what you're talking about is when the terrorists infiltrating residential area in villages and sometimes in the suburbs of the cities and within large cities, and the army has to go there to get rid of those terrorists. The army should defend the civilians, not the opposite. You cannot leave them free, killing the people and assassinating the people and beheading the people and eating their heart. When you go to defend them, you say that you are killing your own people. You don't. But in every war, you have casualties. This is war. You don't have a clean war. You don't have soft war. You don't have good war. That's
The international community reports that Syrian rebel forces opposed to you are equally, if not more, worried now about jihadi fighters than they were previously about your government. Now, in this new development, is there an opening for you to achieve a rapprochement with your Syrian opponents?
Yeah, here we have to differentiate between what you call opposition and the terrorists. Opposition is a political meaning, it's a political term. When you oppose somebody, like in your country, in any other country in the world, you have your own program, you have your own vision, you have your own grassroots, and you propose whatever you want regarding the political system or anything else, and you can change that system if you oppose the other party. Opposition doesn't mean to carry weapons and kill people, kill innocent, and to destroy schools, to destroy infrastructure, and to behead. What's the relation between opposition and beheading?
Well, let me then, as a follow-up, ask you about diplomacy. What diplomatic moves are you prepared to make as confidence-building measures towards peace in your country?
Any diplomatic move without having stability and getting rid of the terrorists is going to be illusional, just an illusion. So any diplomatic move should start with stopping the flow of the terrorists, the logistical support of those terrorists, the armament support and the money support. Then you have full plan. The Syrian could sit on the table, discuss the future of Syria, the political system, the constitution, the institution, everything.